There is a strange hypothesis most of us have never dared to consider. That every flicker of human feeling, joy, fear, despair, or love, is not merely a biological reaction within the brain but also a signal, a pulse of invisible energy cast into the cosmos. And perhaps even more unsettling, what if those signals do not simply vanish into the void but are intercepted, harvested, and consumed by intelligences far beyond our comprehension? From the earliest myths, humanity has whispered about unseen gods who feed on worship, demons who drink sorrow, or spirits that thrive on offerings of fear. Across cultures, the same motif repeats. Emotions are not entirely our own. They are like currency in some larger economy of existence. The ancients told their stories with the language available to them. Pantheons, angels, devils. But in the language of modern speculation, might these gods be extraterrestrials, advanced civilizations that discovered long ago how to siphon the raw force of feeling from planets like ours? Picture it. A civilization so old that their physical needs are trivial, a species that no longer craves food, minerals, or water, but something subtler: vibrations of consciousness. For them, love could be a radiant fuel, terror a sharp spark of current, grief a dense and nourishing matter. They would not need to conquer Earth by force, because we, unwittingly, would generate their sustenance endlessly, every day, every moment. We are like orchards that bloom with invisible fruit, unaware that our blossoms are being picked. You may wonder, how could such a process work? Science tells us that emotions are biochemical storms, neurotransmitters firing, hormones released. Yet beneath that biology lies something more elusive: waves of electrical activity, fields that ripple outward. Quantum theorists have long hinted that consciousness may interact with the fabric of reality in ways not fully understood. If even our primitive instruments can detect brain waves, who is to say that technologies millions of years older could not refine those waves into streams of usable energy? Imagine machines the size of moons, orbiting quietly in hidden corners of our solar system, tuned to harvest the surges of collective despair during wars, the spikes of ecstasy during celebrations, the low hum of everyday human longing. History, then, begins to look different through this lens. Perhaps the sudden rises and falls of empires, the inexplicable bursts of violence, the contagious spread of panic or mania. These are not random accidents of culture, but orchestrated harvest seasons. A war is not merely fought for territory but for the banquet of terror it produces. A miracle is not only divine, but also a carefully stimulated bloom of hope that radiates like nectar. If this is true, then humanity has always been a field tended by hands we cannot see. The thought gnaws at the mind. What would such harvesters look like? Perhaps nothing like the gray, frail figures we imagine in science fiction. They may not even be beings in any form we can picture. They could exist as immense fields of consciousness, formless yet vast, drifting through space as predators of vibration. To them, our entire planet might be little more than a single organ of sensation, a glowing lantern in the dark emitting streams of nourishment. They would not need to land, abduct, or announce themselves. All they would need is for us to continue feeling, to continue suffering, loving, fearing, rejoicing, because every pulse is another meal. And suddenly, the old patterns of human life look uncanny. Why are we creatures so prone to extremes of emotion? Why do our brains dwell so much on grief? Why do we replay pain endlessly? Why does fear cling so easily? Evolutionary biology offers partial answers. Fear kept us safe, joy bonded communities. But the persistence of our intense, often destructive emotions has always raised questions. If emotions were only about survival, why do they so often sabotage us, driving us to wars, betrayals, addictions? Unless, of course, the system is not designed purely for our benefit. Unless there is a larger ecosystem at play, and we are just one layer of it. Some researchers of the fringe whisper of emotional resonance events, moments when the world seems to pulse as one. The death of a celebrity, a natural disaster, a global celebration, millions feeling the same emotion simultaneously. For us, these are collective experiences, sometimes bonding, sometimes tragic. But to a harvester civilization, such moments would be feasts. the emotional output of an entire species crystallized into one massive surge. It would be like lightning striking endlessly across a field of collectors. They would wait for these moments, perhaps even seed them subtly, nudging history to create opportunities for maximum harvest. If this is true, then what does it mean for free will? Are our greatest loves, our deepest despairs, truly ours, or are they cultivated? The wars we fight, the revolutions we ignite, the heartbreaks that shatter entire generations, were they always born from us, or are we simply instruments being played, strings plucked by unseen hands that hunger for the vibrations we emit? It is a horrifying thought, yet strangely poetic, that love itself is not wasted but becomes the light that powers the universe. That grief, however crushing, is transmuted into fuel for creation somewhere beyond the stars. That fear, while paralyzing to us, becomes the very spark that keeps other worlds alive. In this way, nothing is ever lost. Every tear, every laugh, every scream, collected, converted, woven into cosmic machinery. Still, the question remains, do they merely feed, or do they also create? If emotions can be harvested, perhaps they can be sculpted. Our joy could fuel not just their survival, but their art. Our terror might be condensed into architectures of energy we cannot imagine. Entire galaxies may glow with structures powered by the despair of countless species. Civilizations may rise on pillars of love that were never their own. If this is the truth, then human life is both insignificant and essential, small in the grand scale, yet vital in providing the streams of raw energy that sustain the builders of eternity. The more one considers it, the more a chilling possibility emerges. Perhaps we are not the first. Perhaps Earth is only the latest farm in a long chain of harvested worlds. Long before us, other species may have bloomed with emotions, their civilizations rising and falling under the invisible scythe of harvesters. They, too, might have wondered why their lives were filled with such drama, why joy and despair so often came hand in hand. They, too, may have asked the same questions we are only beginning to form. And now, perhaps, they are gone. Stripped of their resonance, emptied of their signal, leaving behind only the husks of silent worlds. If we are indeed farms of feeling, what would it mean to resist? Could humanity learn to shield its emotions, to hide its resonance, to become invisible to the harvesters? Some spiritual traditions already hint at this. Ancient meditation practices speak of stilling the mind, dissolving attachment, entering states of emptiness where emotions no longer rise and fall. Mystics across cultures, Buddhist monks, desert hermits, Sufi poets, have described the experience of detachment as not just peace, but liberation from unseen chains. Could it be that they were not merely escaping the chaos of the human mind, but slipping free from the hooks of harvest itself? Imagine, then, what such resistance would look like on a global scale. If millions of people learned to quiet the storms inside, if entire societies practiced stillness rather than feeding fear or desire, perhaps the streams of energy would dim. The harvesters would sense a drought. Their feast would thin, their attention might wander elsewhere. Yet here lies the paradox. Would they allow such freedom? Or would they stir conflict to reawaken the flow, seeding discord, fanning the flames of hatred and war just to ensure that the current of human feeling never runs dry? Already we see how easily emotions can be manipulated. Entire nations can be driven to frenzy by words on a screen, by symbols and images crafted to provoke anger, fear, or pride. Our digital world amplifies resonance as never before. One viral video, one headline, one speech, and millions feel the same surge together, feeding something unseen. What if the age of the internet is not progress, but a perfected harvesting mechanism? What if the network itself is less a tool for us than an irrigation system for them, channeling every spike of human passion into streams that can be siphoned off? In this frame, humanity's story becomes not just about survival on Earth, but about its place in a larger ecology of consciousness. We are not prey in the ordinary sense, but sources of nectar. To resist is not to fight with weapons, but to understand, to awaken, to realize what is being taken. And if we awaken, what then? Do we cut the cord? Or do we learn to harvest ourselves, to redirect the energy of feeling into our own creations, our own transcendence, before it is taken. The possibility lingers like a whisper. What if emotions are not only food, but also keys? If harvested correctly, could they unlock dimensions, open gates, weave matter and energy in ways we do not yet grasp? Perhaps the harvesters are not parasites, but architects, using our resonance to build things we cannot see. Perhaps every sorrow we endure contributes to structures of light in some other realm. The very galaxies might be lattices woven from the grief of billions, the very stars burning with the passion of forgotten civilizations. In this sense, our emotions would never be wasted, but endlessly transmuted into forms we cannot yet imagine. And yet, what comfort is that to those who suffer here? If every war, every heartbreak, every act of despair is simply fodder for cosmic construction, then are we not enslaved, reduced to raw material? There is no dignity in being a fuel source, no matter how grand the machine it powers. Unless, of course, we learn to choose to transform the process consciously. What if humanity could decide not merely to feel, but to channel? Not merely to weep, but to weave with purpose? Not merely to rage, but to forge that rage into light? Perhaps this is why certain traditions insist that enlightenment is not escape, but mastery. To become aware of the currents of feeling and direct them, rather than be directed. If harvesters exist, they may no longer hold power over those who have awakened. And maybe that is the greatest threat we pose to them. Not our weapons, not our technology, but our ability to understand what emotions truly are. Imagine the day humanity awakens. Wars begin to falter because fear no longer dominates. Hatred dissipates because people refuse to let their energy be siphoned. Grief transforms into compassion, joy into shared creation. The harvesters watch, hungry yet unable to touch what is freely given. For a gift is not the same as a theft. Perhaps at that moment the balance shifts. We cease to be farms, and we become gardeners of our own resonance. The energy no longer flows outward uncontrolled, but inward and upward, spiraling into new forms of civilization that no harvester can reach. But until that awakening, we remain vulnerable. Every crisis that shakes the planet, every collective wound, every orchestrated division, it may not be random. Perhaps it is the shadow of the harvest at work, the invisible hand ensuring that the flow of human emotion never ceases. And we, busy, distracted, convinced that we are masters of our fate, never notice the vast machinery humming in the dark beyond the stars. So the next time you feel your heart surge with fear, the next time despair grips you, the next time joy makes you tremble, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, where does this energy go? Does it vanish into nothing? Or does it stream upward, outward into channels unseen? If you listen closely, you may almost hear it. A faint hum, a low vibration, the sense that you are part of something vast, something both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Perhaps the harvesters are not enemies, but reminders. Perhaps they exist to force us to confront what emotions really are. To remind us that feelings are not trivial, not private, not small. They are forces. They ripple outward into the cosmos. They shape more than our lives. They shape worlds. If aliens harvest them, it is only because we have yet to learn how to harvest them ourselves. In the end, maybe this is the ultimate paradox. That our emotions, which so often enslave us, may also be the path to our liberation. If we learn to master them, they cease to be food for others and become power for ourselves. If we remain blind, we are fields endlessly reaped. If we awaken, we are stars. And so the question lingers, haunting yet luminous. What if every laugh, every scream, every tear you shed tonight is not only yours, but a pulse that echoes into eternity? What if the universe itself grows fat on your despair, bright on your love, alive on your fear? What if we are all, every one of us, farmers without knowing it, sowing emotions into the dark soil of space, where others reap the harvest unseen? The answer is not given, perhaps never will be. But the next time your heart breaks, or your joy overwhelms you, remember, you are not alone in that moment. Something listens, something feeds, something waits,